So I always remember this feast as a kid because I didn't know much, but I knew on August 15th I would be in salt water at the beach. And I don't know whether it was an old Irish custom. My aunts probably took my mother and my uncle when they were kids to always had to be in the water on the Assumption. I'm not sure what the connection was, but I liked it, so it worked for me. So the Assumption, when you look at ecclesiology, the study of church, the image of Jesus was always that of a good shepherd, an artist who give us all the renderings of the Dormition, of the Assumption. Around the 8th century, artists started to depict Christ not just as the good shepherd who took care of his sheep, and we've seen them, they started depicting Jesus as the great judge, the great judge. So if you were a lapsed Catholic or a convert that wasn't doing the right things, this would scare the bejeebers out of you. The depiction of Jesus as judge as opposed to good shepherd. So he went from being a very intimate image to being kind of a judgmental and a harsh image. And around the 8th century then, the very large devotion to Mary grew in our church. And there was some devotion obviously from the beginning, but clearly devotion to Mary continued, and she brought that intimacy that image of Christ the judge might have lacked. 1950, the Pope at the time, Pius XII, in a very dogmatic statement, issued the declaration on the Assumption, Holy Day of Obligation since 1950. It falls on a Saturday today. Obviously, it falls in the middle of a pandemic too, but when it falls on a Saturday or a Monday, it ceases to be a holy day of obligation. It's still a holy day. It's still the feast day of the Assumption. 103 years ago, 1917, Mary appeared at Miracle of the Sun at Fatima. Some of you have probably been to Fatima. And clerics and communists, everybody saw this strange thing of the sun in Portugal at Fatima. And it was called a miracle. What's a miracle? Miracles, a miracle is something that it enhances our belief. It is not a substitute for belief, but a miracle kind of suspends the laws of nature as we know it. When we see some of the miracles in the gospel, it suspends the laws of nature. We can see something like if we said today that Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi agreed on everything and did everything together, we said, boy, that's a miracle. Well, it doesn't suspend the laws of nature. We use it in our vernacular. But what happens with Mary is that a couple things that we know is, one, her proximity to Jesus was incredibly strong. And then the other thing is we know that with many of the saints, we have their relics someplace or we venerate them someplace. We have stories of their death, how accurate or not, we're not sure. But with Mary, there's none of that. No remains, no accounts of her death, no any of that. So you just figure almost a miraculous, and this comes with eyes of faith, that because she was the mother of Jesus, that her remains were not allowed to be here. So as Christ had his ascension, Mary's Assumption, and they were removed from our world. It's a moment of faith, and certainly we venerate this incredible woman who even more than biologically showed us how to be good disciples.